and welcome once again to Crazy Comics and Stories. It's me, your charming and delightful old Uncle Rat Bastard. And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires that we call the internets is Joe, Crazy Writer. How you doing today, Joe?
I think we should put this podcast away until we're better rested.
I am better rested.
I'm not. I mean, I hate to start with a freaking, but I was up all night. My gut's rotting. My hips are at that point where it's getting tough to sleep. And then I get up. I mean, yeah, granted it's 11:35 on a Saturday morning, but I get up on my one day off to podcast. Now I don't even get a cookie for my dedication. But I do have some Diet Mountain Dew, so maybe, just maybe, my demeanor will improve as we go on. Of course, it always depends on what we're going to talk about on the podcast, too.
We're going to talk about previews. It's time for previews, Joe.
See, that works already. I've always said some days I get more excited with the previews catalog than I do when I get the actual comics. It's like Christmas every month. It's like having the old Sears catalog and going through it and going, I can look at this and I can buy this and I can buy this. And it's more like, I want this. I make myself a want list and it has the pages and how many issues. And then I look at my wallet and go, oh. So it's and I do my overall impression of previews this month. Last month was a plethora of riches and of all the things that I talked about, a lot of them I couldn't order because it goes over what my budget is for the month. This month was the opposite. I mean, I'm going to talk about different things, and some of the things I talk about I probably won't order because when I get to the budget, but there just wasn't a lot of, oh my God, I got to get this. Oh my God, I need this. Holy moly. I mean, like last month, 2 omnibuses. The Peter David Hulk and the Annihilation Omnibus. This month, I mean, when we start talking about graphic novels with DC and Marvel, I got nothing.
Well, I will make up for it.
And usually you do, and then sometimes I'll write down like, okay, maybe I'll think of this, or I'll put that as a question mark. So if my budget is within, I will. I might jump it on. Or sometimes, because we do discount com where you can send them a quick note and say, hey, could you include this in my thing? And so it doesn't count for my monthly order, but, it's just auxiliary sales. So, yeah.
Well, we will talk. First off, we for the new people, when we go over previews, we don't talk about the regular stuff we buy every month, like Amazing Spider-Man and Batman and whatever.
No.
We highlight...
Although we did, I think one of our first episodes of the year, we talk about the regular monthlies we buy. So right. You can always go back to that, and I'm pretty sure it hasn't changed too much.
But what we talk about in our previews is the trade paperbacks, hardcovers, and new series that we find interesting. Yeah. And just like previews, we're going to start with the Image.
Yeah, and I got to say, too, a couple previews ago, I talked about a lot of the licensing products, and I'll mention a few of them here, but like, if you like Ghostbusters, you should look at IDW. If you like Vampirella, you should be looking at Dynamite. You never know if you like Orville, the TV show, since we don't get new ones till the end of 2020, and on Hulu, the comic is out, and through Dark Horse. So yeah, it's usually worth, if you can't afford to buy it. And kudos to Discount Comic Book Service because they sell it to us for $1 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're archiving things, I save these for a couple months and then just recycle them. I don't keep my previews because I can't honestly see looking through them again.
And they're so thick.
They're thick. They're big. Although occasionally I'll run in. Like when I'm clearing out stuff from my old comic shops, I'll find old ones that are fun and I do get a kick out of looking through those. Because you look at series like, oh yeah, they're really excited about this one, but it died. And this one, like, oh, if only I could go back and order about 10 more of those. But that's pure speculation, fanboy. Cory and I come at it from the reading and enjoyment aspect. And the first one I will talk about, since you you segued into Image, and if you got your previews, you can come along with us. Go to page 46. And again, I'm getting predisposed to this because Image puts their new stuff right in the beginning. They give a decent description. They talk about things that the creators may have done before, and then they give a couple pages of previews, which is usually the clincher. And the one on page 46 is The Marked #1, which is a new series. David Hine, Brian Haberlin, who is also the artist. They have this one out as a double-sized one for $3.99, so it might be worth checking out. And it, as I mentioned, it's called The Marked. The Marked may look like a cool young influencers. Ooh, good grammar. But that's me, not them. But beneath the designer clothes, their bodies are tattooed with magical glyphs of an ancient order that secretly protects the world against evil forces. Hang on, I a little sip of Diet Dew here. Okay, with no new occult threats, the Marked use their tattoo power solely for the pursuit of pleasures until a young woman called Liza creates a dangerous new form of hybrid sorcery. Well, you can actually see her playing with it in the 4-page preview they give, and that's enough for me. I think this one looks like it'll be kind of interesting. So that's definitely the first one I would point out. How about you, Mr. Strode? What you got?
Well, there was a series that came out from Image that I really liked called Dead Rabbit. And then they had to end it because Dead Rabbit was actually, that name was copyrighted. So instead, it's going to be Dead Eyes, #1 on page 59 by Gary Dugan and Joel McCrae. In the 90s, Dead Eyes was a prolific stand-up man and hoodlum in Boston till he took down one last big score and disappeared. Nobody ever discovered the truth. He retired to be with the love of his life, but now he's back in the mask to save her. I don't know if this is a reprint of the first issue. Funny thing is, it says... double size, and then you look and know it's 32 pages. So I don't know if this is a reprint or if they had to redo it or what, but I loved that book. I also want to point out, it's not an omnibus, but it might as well be. On page 63, Kill or Be Killed by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. It's going to be reprinted, all 20 issues in a hardcover for $50, which means it'll be about 25 from DCB Service. This is a fantastic comic. It's by the people who do Criminal, one of the best comics being printed. Except there's a catch. Grad student Dylan must kill one person who deserves it every month. And the longer it goes on, the more he realizes just how many people deserve to be killed. This was fantastic. It's going to be turned into a TV series, I believe. But as a comic, it's one of the better limited long-run comics I've read in a while. And of course, Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, I love their stuff. For me, that was about it from Image other than the regulars.
Well, I would add Dead Eyes on my list as well. There is one back on page 50, I'll point out, Nomen Omen. Marco Bucci, cover artist, and artist Chipoko Kamanji, whatever. Call us up, we'll pronounce it right. But this one's a 15-issue series. It says, no matter how fast you run, sooner or later your past will catch up with you. Enter Becky Kumar, a geeky 20-year-old from New York City who's about to cross the veil between our reality and a realm of otherworldly truths. Again, there's a 3-page preview. This one I'm going to point out because although I probably will not buy this series, I will be looking for the graphic novel. And my guess is they're going to do it probably, as they say, it's Total Eclipse of the Heart's the name of the story, part 1. Maybe it's going to be 3 5-issue arcs, whatever. I will probably hold off until it either comes out in the paperbacks or maybe like you mentioned in the The 15 issues, that's pretty good size. That could be almost a deluxe edition type thing. So, yeah, those would be the ones, the new ones, anyways, from Image that I'd be looking for. Next up, Dark Horse. Dark Horse has a couple different things that
New Grendel.
Well, yeah, I knew you were going to do that one.
New Grendel.
I'm going to push you first to page 98, and there's a series called Count Crowley, Reluctant Midnight Monster Hunter. Aspiring reporter Jerry Bartman is furious when she's demoted to hosting the nightly creature feature at her small town TV station. But Jerry quickly learns that there's more to the horror hosting than just introducing bad B movies. And she's in costume the first night of her, and she runs into a living, breathing werewolf? Or was she drunk? Shades of, what was that series? I want to say Night Fright from ages ago. 4-issue miniseries. I like the miniseries format because if I like it and it continues, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to skip over Grendel because I'll let Cory take care of that.
Grendel! Grendel drawn by Matt Wagner!
104, there's Ruby Falls. And I think I'm just going to give up doing trying to pronounce names, but it's from Berger's books, and Ruby Falls is a sleepy town, but sleep brings nightmares, and Lana is about to wake up in the middle of her hometown's biggest secret, the disappearance of an infamously famous progressive Betty Gallagher during the mobster-ruled heyday of old mining towns. Cold case murder comes out through her grandmother's foggy memories, and Lana becomes obsessed with cracking the case, even if it splinters the peaceful town. Anne Vicente is writing it, and I forget, I'm not going to try the last name. Again, a 4-issue miniseries. Two other things I'll point out, and one of them is on. I just gotta step back a bit and let Cory do this one because he's going to go good. But if you really like, if you want to try Grendel, they're offering their 3 omnibuses. And I'm looking to probably jump on and get the #1 Hunter Rose. So, okay, hang on, listen, my mic down. Go ahead, Cory. Tell them what's on page 100.
Grendel! Grendel, Devil's Odyssey by Matt Wagner. Returning to the character for the first time in ages. First time he's drawn the character since the 80s. And just the 2 pages they show are phenomenal. I buy anything by Matt Wagner, but him returning to Grendel just makes me very happy. I'm kind of surprised my Grendel tattoo didn't start glowing when they. I'd also want to point out page 110. Choke, gasp, the best of 75 years of EC Comics. I have talked about EC Comics since this podcast began. EC was the best comic book publishing company in history, a murderer's row of artists, just probably the best group of artists to ever work in comics. This is a 500-page book? 528-page book for $50, reprinting what they say are the best of EC. Looking at the rundown, it's real easy to see that these are going to be phenomenal comics. It's just, if you've ever wondered about EC, if you've ever wanted to dip your toe, if you ever want to see what all the fuss is about, this is going to be the perfect book to pick up to get a good idea of what the company was like. Then on the other page is EC Archives Modern Love, which was one of the books they did before they created Tales from the Crypt, etc. And I've read it, and I don't understand why they're putting it out as an archive, because it's not good.
Well, that's why, because it's archived. That way, for completists that want it, it's there.
So that's all I had for Dark Horse. So shall we go on to IDW?
I will point out, if you're a Kabuki fan, on page 115, David Mack's got an omnibus, Volume 1. So that's again, those are things. I've got the original Kabuki deep in my collection, and this is one of those, like, if it was maybe it was a hardcover, I don't know, but if it was a hardcover, I'd probably jump on it. But if you've never seen his early stuff in Kabuki, you really should. You'll give yourself a treat. All right, next up, a company I don't know how they exist.
Well, they're losing millions of dollars a year, so I don't know either.
Millions.
Because they're a public company, they have to report it.
They're getting my attention, though. And we're talking DC Comics. They're and as if they ain't got enough labels. Under the black label, they have something called Joe Hill's. Joe Hill presents Hill House Comics. Joe Hill, of course, is the horror mastermind behind Lock and Key. Another series, what's it called? Nos
482.
Oh, I get it. He's got a bunch of stuff coming out of DC Comics, and I'm kind of like, I'm not big on horror comics, but if you got me in the description, and more importantly, it's a miniseries, I will. I'll give it a shot. And the first one offered, if you pull out your DC previews, which should be free with every previews you pick up, on page 3. Well, first of all, page 2 has the introduction, so you can read about him. And then they even give him a little room to talk about what he's doing, what he's trying to accomplish. And his first run is Basket Full of Heads. And it's basically the rain lashes the grassy dunes of Brody Island, and seagulls scream above a boy. Slender figure in a raincoat carries a large wicker basket, which looks like it might be full of melons, covered in a blood-stained scrap of the American flag. This is the story of June Branch, a young woman trapped with 4 cunning criminals who have snatched her boyfriend for deranged reasons of their own. Now she must fight for her life with the help of an impossible 8th century Vikings axe that can pass through a man's neck in a single swipe and leave the severed head still conscious, capable of supernatural speech. Each dismembered head has a malevolent story of its own to tell, and it isn't long before June finds herself in a desperate struggle to hack through their lives and manipulations, racing to save the man she loves before time runs out. Again, 6 issues. I will probably wait till I get all 6. I suspect this will be the type of series that reads better when you have it together. If I really like it, I'll buy the graphic novel. And what's also cool is they're going to give you a backup story of Sea Dogs, which I don't know if that's tied into the main series, or apparently it's something that's going to cross over all the Hill House comics. So maybe this sounds like it might be a connected universe. Kind of exciting. And I just figured, you know what? I'm always skeptical coming into this, but this first description actually caught my attention. And Black Label, it could have been Vertigo, but I guess Black Label means what? DC must own a piece of it now, a little bit better, so they could, if they do decide to make a movie or a miniseries out of it, they can. That's my take on it.
You skipped over a couple that I wanted to point out in IDW.
How could you skip over? I'm in DC.
I thought we were in IDW.
Well, why didn't you stop me when I said, here's the DC preview? I got mine alphabetical. Because after, see what happens is you're ahead of me, because you go from Dark Horse and you flip over their re-lists, and then you get the hacks auctions where they tease you with all sorts of things we'll never own, like a 5.0 Detective Comics, or a 30, or a 7.5 Amazing Fantasy, and then you're into DC. But no, you kept going into IDW. So this time you're ahead of me, fanboy. So slow down and give DC. And that's why I thought it was weird when you better retract that, because DC isn't necessarily losing millions of dollars. We don't know.
We don't know. IDW is. But
So take that, save it, and we'll do that for the introduction. So, but it's funny that you did you think that Joe Hill Comics was part of ICW, or?
He's got stuff coming out at IDW.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, no, this is DC Black Label altogether.
Okay.
So Hence the question, do you think they own a piece of it and they'll be able to make movies of it?
Well,
So,
it's another one of those pop-up things like Young Animal. So,
you want to go round robin on DC stuff?
well, the next thing I'd want to point out is on page 24.
Okay.
The DC 100-page giants that were being done exclusively through Walmart will now be at Walmart, Target, and through comic shops. They listed here, Dan DiDio in a recent interview said they will have up to 20 of these series.
The most important thing, and this is the note I was going to put up, look at the little tiny important note that's about a third of the way down in the second column. These titles will be available with a reprint cover art in mass market outlets before they go on sale in comic shops with new cover art. Variant cover, baby. They got you. You not only have to get one cover, and it will be real interesting to see which ones jump in value, especially if they do like they did with Batman 5. And I applaud that. If a first character's appearance is in one of these, and they don't necessarily announce it, Marvel's getting a lot of heat in their back issue markets because things are happening and they're not necessarily crowing about it, like the appearance of Wolverine's daughter. And if it does sell out, you can make a second print and have another variant cover. So yeah, you fanboys who encourages this 100-page comic giant, you're not off the hook yet, especially if you're a variant cover collector. So, but like they said, it's a reprint cover art in mass market, and then there'll be new cover art. And for Cory, it's probably easy now because now you can order what you want. And
well, and not only that,
to Walmart and try to find, and Targets to see if you can find them.
Through DCB service, you can order the whole bundle. And that's what I'm going to do.
That's what I was going to ask. Which one of these have your attention? I wish they had the cover art because, I do collect Christmas covers, and I suppose they'll probably get around to doing a Christmas cover eventually. It'd be nice
also,
if they had,
hopefully they tell us who the creative teams are.
And it'd be nice if they could tell us which classic reprints are in there. But I will back you up to page. Oops, did I even write it down? Oh, page 19. The Return of Hellblazer in the Sandman universe. And I'm kind of curious of this. It's a one-shot, which I don't know if that means a new series is coming, and this is just a way to hook it. But they are bringing Constantine into the Sandman universe. Probably means it'll be more adult-orientated than his run in like DC Justice League Dark or his own Constantine series, which I don't think is being published anymore, is it? Well,
they're starting a new one.
Okay, but is it going to be Hellblazer or is it going to be Constantine or is it going to be both?
It's going to be the Sandman Universe presents Hellblazer.
Okay, but he's not going to be necessarily running around the DC universe, even though we already know the two mesh occasionally. Or maybe we don't know yet. Cory, do you like yourself a good radio drama?
Yes, I do.
Well, would you like to see the radio serial Clan of the Fiery Cross from the 1940 Superman radio series turn into a stunning prestige format bi-monthly comic?
Why, yes, I would. And I guess there are people at DC who've been pushing for this for years.
Go to page 21. It's going to be 3 issues in their prestige format. Now, I don't have mine here. When they say prestige format, are they talking like the oversized Black Label?
No, these are the square-bound Dark Knight.
Okay, but then when you get to all the, I skipped over because the Black Label is just exploding. But they have, and I don't know if you're going to pick up any of them, but they have. I was just curious what they meant by that, because even in the, I'm just looking at some of the blacklight. They're like 8.5 by 10 and 8.75 inches. So, but this one's just 6 by 9, your standard comic. So, okay, well, that's cool to know. But yeah, 3 issues, inevitable graphic novel. But I'm looking forward to this one.
And on the page right before it, they're using the name Secrets of the Sinister House for another one of those one-shots that will have basically short stories by a bunch of comic creators. I like those.
Is Wildcats been canceled?
Wildcats has been pulled to be released later, although Warren Ellis says it's canceled.
Because I noticed issue 3 is being solicited. I was down for it to give it a shot, but never mind. Forget it. I'm just going to cross it off my list. Never mind. Now, see, this is one of those books, and again, we don't do it because when we buy through Discount Comic Book Service, we have to prepay everything, which is why I asked the question. I don't want to necessarily buy a book I know has already been canceled. But if it's still in your solicitation and you're a comic shop and you want to try to get to the next discount level, hey, why did you order 3,452 copies of Wildcats 3?
No reason.
No reason. Oh, well.
Joe, did you notice there was a large section where the November special covers are being solicited?
I don't recall.
Toward the back, around, well, when does it start? It starts on page 95. They are early soliciting acetate covers.
Oh, yeah. And I guess they're going to be the same price as the regular book. Variant cover. So if you're
the variant cover is $4.99. The regular comic is $3.99.
Okay, that's not what I read somewhere. They're like, hey, it'd be the same price. Oh, you're talking of the cardstock variant cover, which is always solicited. So I get what they're saying. So yeah, if you want that, acetate covers are kind of cool. You know, they're the two. You lift one and lay the cover on it, and it changes the image. Very popular when Wizard Comics did their Ace editions that you see pop up from time to time on the eBays. So if you're into that, you should take a close attention, because to get that, you can advance order it now. It's kind of like what they did the lenticular covers of a couple of years ago. And because it take them a little extra time, and they'll probably only make them to order, which will make them hot collector items. Or not. You never know how many they're going to order.
Back in the trade paperbacks.
And here's where I just sit back and let Cory go.
Well, the first one is one I'm not getting because I have the hardcovers, the paperbacks, and the omnibus. But they are putting out an absolute version of Kirby's Fourth World.
Absolute editions are big, oversized slipcase. Beautiful way to look at the art. I have Kingdom Come. I've got JLA Avengers. I've got Hush, Watchmen. I've got a couple different absolutes. I think I've got the Authority in that. So, if you have not picked it up, this is a awesome way to look at it.
And it's 816 pages.
Yeah.
So I think what they're going to do, they're going to have two of them. So it'll be a 2-volume set. I am not picking that one up. However, on the next, if you flip over a few more pages, DC's You're the Villain Omnibus, they're already soliciting an omnibus for comics that have not been printed yet.
I would suggest go back to page 120, and if you have never read Neil Gaiman's Book of Magic, with art by John Bolton, among other people, pick up, I might pick up the hardcover edition, because this is one I pull out year after year and read, and my paperback copy is getting a little ragged. If not, pick up the trade edition, because they're offering them both at the same time. And again, Neil Gaiman, I mean, it was brilliant. It may have relevance to what's going on in the new DC 52. It initially came out it was going to explain how magic worked in the DC. It's kind of like a whole time trip from the past to the far distant future. It contains Sandman, Morpheus, Death. So if you're a Sandman collector and you never pick this up, which I find it hard to believe, and it's a good, enjoyable tale even on its own. It's got some of my favorite comic scenes of all time. Cory and I ever do a podcast, we'll do that. This is the one where well, I'm not going to say anything in case. Well, no, we talked about it before. How can you spoil a book that's 30 years old?
Yeah.
But basically, this is the beginning introduction to Tim Hunter, and he's either going to become the best magician the world's ever seen, or he's going to become the worst. Actually, it ties in a little bit to the aforementioned Hellblazer one shot that we talked about, where and it says in the description that Constantine just has come off a battle dealing with the bad Tim Hunter. Well, in this one, the Trenchcoat Brigade, and who was it? It was Dr. Occult, Phantom Stranger, Constantine, and a new guy, Mr. E, M.R.E. Get it? And they take, like I said, they take Tim to the past, into the present. Well, in the present, they run into Zatanna, and she takes Tim to a bar where all the magic users hang out and have fun. Well, while they're there, word comes out that, hey, Tim's here, and there's a price on his head, and hey, anybody wants to collect? And so everybody slowly starts turning on Tim, and while Zatanna's kind of backing up and trying to protect him, they're basically overwhelmed. Also, you see a match. Psh! And somebody lights a cigarette, and one of the magic users, Constantine, and she drops her tray. And, I'm getting chills just thinking about that scene. It's just brilliant. I mean, you could see this being done in a movie, but in the comic, it is so brilliant. And basically, Constantine, without a fight, just gets the guys out of there. And Zantanna's like, how did you do that? You got no powers? Just, to me, I'm going to dig up my copy and read it after the podcast. So I have a copy, but this is highly recommended by me. And across the page, if you haven't read it yet, Deceased. Did you read Deceased, Cory?
I've read the first couple issues, but it's not over yet.
Well, would you recommend it if someone hasn't picked it up like me?
It depends on if they stick the ending. That's kind of why I'm a little. Hey, this is you can buy this. Well, the last issue is also solicited in this.
So you're worried about the Game of Thrones effect?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why would I buy a hardcover if the last issue you read it like,
Yeah. All right. Okay. Anyways, what else do you recommend?
Let's see. There's page 124. DC's Wanted, the world's most dangerous supervillains, reprinting a series that reprinted comics. I don't think I've ever seen that before. This reprint's a reprint series. What it was, this was a series in the 70s that reprinted the origins and stories of DC villains.
Which I remember, I don't think I have it in my collection anywhere, but I loved picking these up. For the longest time, you could find this crap in like the dollar bins and stuff like that. And, you don't anymore. Did you ever read, Cory, The Death of Superman?
Yes, but I did not read the new version by Louise Simonson.
I was curious because this is one of those, they say, first time in print, but it was not on my radar when it came out.
Well, that's because it was a digital exclusive.
Oh. $16.99, 136 pages? Well, maybe. That's on the maybe list.
Hellblazer by Garth Ennis. No one did Hellblazer as good as Garth Ennis. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Alan Moore. I don't care if you're Neil Gaiman. Garth Ennis made Hellblazer cool.
Well, Neil Gaiman only did one issue, but...
Well, and he had him show up in a few books.
Yeah, but still.
This was good. This was good stuff.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if there was anything else. I am going to be picking up the Robin Omnibus, which reprints all the Bronze Age Robin solo stories. But here's a pet peeve I have, Joe.
Okay.
Take a look at when it's on sale.
Great googly moogly. April of next year.
22nd.
That's a long time to tie up your money.
That's a long time for a shop to have ordered something.
And you also know that DC's doesn't have the best track record when it comes to getting their omnibuses out.
So yeah, I'm. I want these stories too because I've never read them.
Yeah.
They have a few here that I've read, like the ones from the 80s. But for the most part, these are stories I never read, and I don't know anything about them.
Yeah, I mean, I was a big Superman Family fan. I have the run of it. I never did collect Batman Family.
Because they were too damn expensive by the time you wanted them.
No, well, this is, it was just something I think I've talked about this before. I got into Superman Family because it was the only place to find stories about Krypto the Super Dog, which I loved. There wasn't, as much as I liked Batgirl, I just didn't see myself buying Batman Family. And they were probably continued. And, at the time I was buying these, I did. It's a tempting book, but like you said, that's a long ways away.
And I should point out something about Batman Family. At the time it was coming out, it was actually selling better than Detective Comics. Remember how I've said in the past, they've canceled Detective Comics twice over a weekend. This was one of those times. Batman Family lasted 20 issues, and if it sold better than Detective, why did they keep Detective? Well, Detective had the name and the company it was named after it. So what they did, they merged the two books. And for a while, you saw the Batman Family starring in Detective Comics. And
anything else out of TC? Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Now
we get to IDW.
Now IDW. Okay. I will push you right away to page 143. Marvel Gold, Solid Gold Superheroes from Yo Books. Yo. Marvel's amazing and fantastic heroes from the golden age of comics punch Nazis and vanquish fifth columnists as we joyfully celebrate Marvel Comics' 80th anniversary. The standards are there: Human Torch, Captain America, Submariner, plus a bounty bevy of obscure heroes like Blazing Skull, Blonde Phantom, Terror, Sun Girl, Marvel Boy, Everlast, and the diabetically consumed Wizard. No, that's Yellow Top. Sorry. You thought Giant Size Man thing. He just gave you the jokes. And Yo Books are awesome anyways because he loves his books. And this one, although $50 hardcover, looks to be pretty amazing. Again, out in January, so a little bit of a wait, but a pre-order right now.
I also think it's good if you don't know Golden Age Marvel, this is a good sampler book. Because really now the only way to pick up Golden Age Marvel is in omnibuses. Except there was a book that dropped this week that was much better than I thought it would be. And we'll talk about that in Geeking. But this is really the best way to kind of see what Marvel's Golden Age was about.
I'm going to rattle through a couple things here that I'm not necessarily getting, but I did want to point out. If you're a Rom fan, he's back on page 153. I pointed out because there's a backup story by Sal Buscema. So if you want to see or is he writing? Yeah, he's doing the art. Of course, he's doing assistance with Guy Dory Sr. So, but I mean, that's how I enjoyed Rom. So that caught my attention. On page 155, if you are a Karate Kid fan or a fan of the YouTube's show, Cobra Kai, he's in comic form, and this one deals with Johnny, the guy who illegally was kicked to the face and lost the tournament. That should have been an investigation. For you Star Trek fans, I'm just going to read this on page 157. Star Trek Voyager, Mirrors and Smoke. Stranded, this is the mirror universe, so don't get too freaked. Stranded far from the ruins of the Terran Empire, Captain Janeway of the rebel ship Voyager has crowned herself Pirate Queen of the Delta Quadrant. Of course, the locals won't give in without a fight, especially not scavengers Neelix and Kess. And who is this apparent Terran who calls herself Annika Hansen? It's a debut of a comic book series, or I should say it's the Mirror Voyagers. Whatever, you know what I'm talking about. But if you're a Star Trek fan, you're already drooling. The last one I'll point out on page 167, Lupus. Lupus, oh yeah, I'm not going to pronounce that, is a man on the run, like a cosmic Odysseus. He wanders from planet to planet, haunted by his past and orbiting around a woman. Starts out as a fishing trip with his ex-military pal Tony. Their lifelong friendship has started to feel differently lately, not because of the drugs. Picking up Sena, a wealthy and mysterious runaway, only complicates the situation. When tragedy strikes, they flee. New worlds await with many ways to disappear. But Lupus finds that the tendrils of friendship, love, and family are not so easily severed. This sounds like something out of the Twilight Zone, and it's a trade paperback for $29.99. Some very, very small preview art, but it's from Top Shelf, and Top Shelf, like Yo Books. I mean, usually I pay attention to what they publish because they usually got some pretty good stuff. Anything IDW from you, Mr. Strode?
Well, if you go back a couple of pages, this is why I thought you were talking about Joe Hill with IDW. Joe Hill, the graphic novel collection. It reprints a bunch of the stuff he's done for IDW that isn't Lock and Key, such as The Cape, Thumbprint, Kodiak, which was the prequel to his AMC series Nosfer-A2, and Wrath. Then, if you remember the TV show Jericho, which I loved, and is kind of, it's set in a small town when a nuclear bomb goes off, and a series of nuclear bombs go off, and they're cut off from civilization. And as the series goes on, you find out that this was a plot to start a civil war in the United States and blame it on China. They did two continuations with the original series writers. The problem is they would be at a company, the company would go under, and it would be months, if not years, between issues. So the whole thing, all of the post-series comics are being printed in a trade paperback for the first time. So if you were a fan of that TV show, there's your conclusion to it. And that was it.
Again, on that same page, there's a couple of their American of Library Comics collection. For better or for worse, I've got the Bloom County ones, and these are awesome because they're complete. So if you love the comic strip, this is a good way to do it. And of course, Steve Canyon fans, you're on volume 10. Just a lot of truly, like we talked about, the golden age of reprints and stuff. Okay.
Dynamite. I don't think I had any. No, I had a couple things in Dynamite.
What, you want to do Dynamite first or Marvel? Because Marvel comes next.
It does. Well, that's not alphabetical.
No, it isn't. But
okay,
it is.
Well, we could do Marvel.
It does. It does have their little. Now here's a minor freaking for you. Apparently, I checked the wrong box and got 2 DC previews, which is fine because they're free. Did not get any Marvel. Now, what's nice about when we order the Marvel, the DC one, or I should just say previews in general, they have DC in it. For some ungodly reason, Marvel, and I think I know why, but Marvel you have to order separate. So I don't have a Marvel catalog with me. How in hell's bells am I going to figure out what I want from Marvel if I don't have a Marvel catalog? I mean, I suppose I could go to the local friendly comic shop and borrow one and look at it. Or I could just go on to previewsworld.com. In every issue of Previews, there's this digital code in the front that allows you to download a digital copy of their book. Now, I didn't do this. I just went to the website, and you go under catalog, and they have everything listed right there. And it was that, or I could have gone to the alphabetical Marvel on Discount Comic Book Service. But I do like the way that Previews had it laid out. It's weird because I do like my previews physical because what I do is I sit with one on one side, I have my list on the other, and I do like to read it. Consequently, I don't have a lot to talk about this, but I'm just going to rattle off quick the books that I'm really, really looking forward to. Amazing Mary Jane #1, which spawns right out of. I say that because on the news page of Previews World, which I have up, is the Image adds 5 new covers to Spawn 300. So if you're looking to get them all, anyways, okay, comes out of Amazing Spider-Man 25. So she's going to have her own series. Dr. Doom is going to have his own series, and I really enjoyed the Iron Doom series, and I can't remember what it was named. Was it Iron Man itself?
Yeah.
And so I'm real curious to see what they do with him now that they've kind of returned him to an adversarial role against the Fantastic Four, but he had reasons for what he was doing. I had down Amazing Spider-Man Full Circle.
Yes.
But I'll let you talk about that then. Doctor Strange has got an annual that I'll pick up. And then it's here, X-Men #1. There'll probably be 5 billion covers, but we've been waiting for Hickman to come out. This is the main show going. I mentioned before no graphic novels, but I'll sit back, Corey. You do have your Marvel.
Yes, I do.
So let's listen to you. Let's start out with the one we both were excited about, Amazing Spider-Man Full Circle.
Let me just read the creative team.
Okay.
Jonathan Hickman and Chris Bacalo.
I'm sold.
Gary Duggan and Greg Smallwood.
I said I'm sold.
Nick Spencer and Michael Allred.
Is it what? Just take my money, please.
Let's see. Al Ewing and Chris Sprouse. Chip Zdarsky and Rachel Stott. Jason Aaron and Cameron Stewart. This is kind of a celebration issue. A summons from S.H.I.E.L.D. leads Peter Parker to a globe-spanning adventure that will test him as never before. It's a 96-page, it's a 100-page comic, and it's a bunch of different people telling parts of a story as Spider-Man goes around the world. I'm pretty excited about it. I had thought that Gary Conway was working on this, but I guess he's not. So it's a nice, almost like a giant size where everybody plays in the same universe. They are restarting Marvel Zombies. And I'm going to be interested to see what they do with that. The restart of the X-Men books. We're getting 3 X-Men books. We're getting X-Men, Excalibur, and Marauders. And Marauders I like this one. Led by Captain Cape Pride, funded by Emma Frost and the Hellfire Trading Company, Marauders Storm, Pyro, Bishop, and Iceman sail the seas of the world to protect those hated and feared. Another Grand Design series. This is by Tom Scioli, who draws very Kirby-esque work. Grand Design is, they did a X-Men series like this, where they go back and they tell all of the stories, except they put them in context, as if it was one big story. So the X-Men one was really good. I'm looking forward to this one as well. A lot of new stuff from Marvel. And then when we get back to the trade paperbacks and hardcovers. Oh, I also want to point out that with Savage Sword of Conan #10, it's written by Roy Thomas and drawn by Alan Davis. Take my money now!
Bastards.
Alan Davis drawing, Roy Thomas writing.
That may get me to buy it.
Just a lot of stuff in the trade paperbacks as well, such as a new printing of The Ultimates by Mark Miller and Brian Hitch, which is been out of print for a long time and goes for $500 to $600. So now you can get it for $100. Let's see. They reprint all of the Marvel Zombies trade paperbacks that have been out of print. There is a Miles Morales omnibus, which has all of the Miles Morales stories under the, let's see, starting with issue #1, 2016. So that's after he came to the Marvel Universe. This is basically the Miles Morales stuff in the Marvel Universe by Bendis. I also get very weirded out when I see that the Marvel Masterworks books are publishing stuff that I bought off the stands. And now they're publishing stuff that I bought off comic shops with the X-Men. X-Men 194 to 200, as well as the annuals that year, where they went to Asgard, and it was all drawn by Art Adams, and it was so good. A second Marvel Masters of Suspense omnibus, so a second collection of all the Stan Lee, Steve Ditko short suspense stories, because I don't mark it at the Marvel stuff because it's more like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. There are things I want, but I gotta be good for a while. And usually when I do it, I'm not, but you know.
And I think that was, let me go back to the Epic books. Oh, they are reprinting the Joe Kelly stuff in Deadpool. So it's Deadpool by Joe Kelly, the complete collection. This is where Deadpool got the personality that we all know him as now. This is when he started breaking the fourth wall, started doing weird stuff, and it also has probably the greatest comic of all time, Deadpool number 11.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The one of the few I kept.
That is the one where they have Deadpool go back in time, and rather than do a regular time travel story, no, they redraw an issue of Spider-Man.
And again,
with Daredevil as Spider-Man.
Another column, if we ever do a top 10 or top 5 comic scenes, is where he's in Peter Parker's body, but we see him as Deadpool, and he's looking at Harry and Norm Osborn and thinking, "Oh my God, look at that hair! It's so sublime. I can't. It's terrifying, but I can't look away." And I'm paraphrasing, but you know they had cornrows before it was a popular style. Oh, just brilliant! And of course, we've talked about it in podcasts past, but I actually, when that book came out, I found a copy of the original that I got. The backstory was I got a collection of Justice League of America comics, the originals, and I told the lady, you know, I can offer you this, but I really don't sell these type of books well. And I referred her to Nostalgia Zone. And when I was going through a con, Chris pulled me over. "Did you send a lady over me with Justice League comics?" I go, "Yeah." I said, "Well, thank you. I'd like to give you like $50 trade credit," because that was so generous. I mean, it just wasn't thought of, because I told her specifically, go there. With that, I got a copy of that book we talked about, and I don't know which Amazing Spider-Man it was. So for everybody who bought a copy of Deadpool, I threw them in a pool, and get it, pool, and they got a copy of that book if I drew their name. So had a little fun with it. And of course, the guy who won it was Jim Thole, who has every Marvel comic anyways, because he's been collecting since the beginning. Oh well, such is life. Anything else from Marvel?
Dynamite.
Dynamite. I got nothing new. I will point out to Vampirella fans, number 1, Vengeance of Vampirella is starting up again with multitude of cool variant covers. I mean the cosplay one. On page 187, if you didn't ever get one, and you can probably find them cheap, Vengeance of Vampirella number 1, they're doing a replica edition. Hey, it's a great idea. I don't. Who did the first one? Was it Marvel? And now DC's doing them. I don't care who's doing them. I think it's a fun idea. And I will point out something I am thinking about. Last month it was Red Sonja. This month, on page 192, Vampirella pins and coins. And I again, budget wise, I got to kind of look at which one, but those look like they're cool. I can see now I'm going to have a collection of these things. And I think somewhere there's actually the Garth Ennis, Derek Robertson. There's the boys pins. Oh, the very next page.
Yes.
195. So if you're so inclined to go that way, if you like Joseph Michael Linsner variant covers, Dynamite is getting into the action, and here's your chance to get them direct from them. If you want a Vampirella 6-inch Jose Gonzalez stand-up, which would be not only awesome for comic shops, but now you can get one, as well as various Vampirella pins. They're just going all sorts of different things. And it's kind of interesting, just things that I point out. The big ones I'm looking at would be the coins, of course, just because they're unique. And I never mentioned it, but I do have a sort of a coin collection that I did when I was back in college and throughout the years. So I like the coins. They're good.
I like coin.
They fit well in wrist rockets. They never mind.
And they're half dollars, so if you run out of money, you can.
I can.
Use two of them to buy a
And they'll
can
look
of
at me and
soap.
say, "That's not really coins." Anything else from Dynamite?
Not really. I'm kind of looking at the Queen Sonia omnibus, but I haven't decided if I'm going to get it yet because it's not by Gail Simone, and Gail Simone's really the one Red Sonia writer at Dynamite that I've enjoyed. So it depends on if I'm still interested when I do my order.
Mm-hmm. So now we go to Boom, which is next in your catalog. I got nothing new that I'm buying. I am going to point out a couple things. Buffy fans, look on page 218, 219. And this is for Buffy and Angel because they're meeting in their first ever comic book event called Hellmouth, which 5-issue miniseries. Peanuts fans, you can jump to page 222. Snoopy, Beagle of Mars in an original graphic novel. So illustrated by Robert Pope, who does a fairly decent Charles Schultz. And this is an all-new graphic novel. So, and I think, I thought Boom had lost the license for WWE, but they still have a few coming out. So pick them up while you can.
They didn't lose the license. It's just the book wasn't selling well enough to continue.
On page 225 is the softcover book of a series I've enjoyed as comic called Faithless from Brian, Cory, help me with the last name, Azzarello?
Yes, Brian Azzarello.
And illustrated by Maria Lovett. And just, faith, sex, devil. What else you need to know? And you got to love it when it comes with rare, exotic, erotic covers that have to be, bagged and protected. But if you didn't do the comic series, here's your chance to do the graphic novel. That's pretty much it for me. Oh, I will point out on page 230 something I absolutely love it when comic companies do this. If you are a Dark Crystal fan, and I'm talking Jim Henson's wonderful movie, they have a timeline, or I should say a crystal timeline. And this should really be a poster in a comic store, so you could put it up and say, here is how you read the books and what level, including when the movie comes out and when the series that's coming out this month from Netflix, Dark Crystal Age of Resistance, because it's all one timeline, and you could show this to people that are Dark Crystal fans like my daughter and say, here's how you can read them. Doesn't mean they're going to pick them all up, but now they at least understand which order they did this. Dark Horse did it with Star Wars. Of course, it got all thrown out when Disney bought it. Ghostbusters did it. I think they've done it with Transformers back in, that was IDW, I believe. So, yeah, brilliant. And boom, make this available as opposed to a double spread in previews, which is impossible to read. Make it a poster that a comic store could get and promote your books, because just brilliant, just absolutely brilliant way to show off your books. And now,
everything else.
All right.
I want to point something out that I'm not buying, but I want to point it out.
Okay.
Joe, go to page 247.
Dun, 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 dun. Page 247.
The Cimmerian, Queen of the Black Coast #1. These people believe that the first Conan stories have gone public domain and are going to be doing a adaptation of those stories. I will be very interested to see if this ever sees print. For the first time, Robert E. Howard's Conan is brought uncensored. Discover the true Conan, unrestrained, violent, and sexual.
Brown chicken, brown cow.
I will be very interested to see if this actually ever sees print, or if Disney kind of steps in and goes, excuse me.
No. So Cory will be on top of that like Oprah on a canned ham, so you don't have to. I will let's jump all the way forward to page 336. And something to point out, top corner, the Hero Initiative has another one of their 100 projects. This one, the Captain America project, the soft cover. What the Hero Initiative, of course, we've talked about in the past, it's to help out comic creators who have basically down on their luck. A lot of creators, you may have invented a character that's currently in a movie, but boy, you're not getting diddly end or squat for it. You may have toiled away in the golden age and silver age, and now you're sitting at home in a rest home, or maybe you just can't pay your bills. Hero Initiative has stepped up to help these people when they're in trouble, if they're in danger of losing their home, if they're having medical issues. They're offering this book in previews. It's a wonderful book because they have 100 different creators making Captain America art. They've done it with all sorts of things. Wolverine, Archie, Walking Dead. Just look at some of the names. John Cassidy, Alan Davis, Dave Gibbons, Adam Kubert, George Perez, Walter Simonson, George Sinat. 100 different ones in the back that with blank covers, so you can go have your favorite creator add to the story. They do take the original that they make of these, and because they're all on those blank covers that we're all familiar with, and then they bring them around the country and auction them off. Some on eBay, some at San Diego Comic-Con. We're even trying to get them to come to the Fall Comic-Con, the one-day wonder, October 5th, 2019, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Minnesota State Fairground Education Building.
Because you need to get educated.
I know creator applications have been put online, so if you're interested in going as a creator, dealer apps are any minute now, so keep an eye on www.mcbacomiccons.com. I will be there. I'm not setting up the charity booth, but if you have something you want to bring and donate to charity and take a tax write-off, just get a hold of me ahead of time, especially if you're going to bring a bunch of boxes of comics. We had one guy donate 8 boxes of comics one year, and it was like, good thing I brought my truck. The Hero Initiative is one of the 2 charities, the other one being the Comic Book Legal Defense Fund. The other thing I'll mention is if you're interested in any of the other 100 projects, or you're more interested in the hardcovers, go to eBay, look up the Hero Initiative, and they have them all listed there. So you can buy them direct from the Hero Initiative if you don't want to do it through previews, through your friendly neighborhood comic shop, or if you're like me and you prefer the hardcovers of this stuff. And since we're on that page, I will point out on page 364, I'll give you folks a minute to flip forward. Dun, 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 dun. If you are a Tick fan, this is the complete Ben Edlund collection is being reoffered again. I have it. I haven't read other people writing the Tick, but Ben's is just phenomenal. If you've seen the animated show, you really should allow yourself to enjoy his original stuff. He also includes the full-length story of issue 13, which was supposed to be the issue that concluded the original storyline. But Ben, in a rare admission of honesty, said, guys, you don't understand. I'm making so much money on the cartoon, and later on, I suppose, on the TV shows, I'm never doing issue 13. And it left 12 left on a cliffhanger. But here he covers it, and then he also covers some backup stories and bonus stuff. A little pricey, but I definitely recommend it, because trying to find good copies of his original run, it's getting tough.
I would like to go back to Fantagraphics.
Okay.
They got a couple of really good books this month. First is Brain Bats of Venus, The Life and Comics of Basil Wolverton, Part 2. Basil Wolverton is one of the greatest comic artists in history. His stuff is unique. The minute you see it, you know it. He had a unique style. His stories were always beautifully drawn and very weird. And Joe, does Joe know, what does Basil Wolverton have to do with Lil Abner?
Lil Abner, who was done by El Cap, had a character, and I cannot remember the name of the character, who
Lena the Hyena.
Who was her claim was that she was the ugliest woman in the world. men would go insane at a glimpse of her face. And I don't know how many times the character appeared, but finally Al had a contest and said, you know what, we're going to have somebody draw her. And they did, and Basil won. Truly, truly a horrendous photo or drawing. Although she had very kind and pleasant eyes, so her personality was stunning.
And it was a lot like the drawing he had done for Mad Magazine a few months previous. So it's almost like he stole from himself.
How dare you?
Then on the next page, The Complete Life and Times of Scrooge McDuck by Don Rosa. If you have not read this story, this is an amazing piece of work. Not only is it a great series of stories, but it takes the life of Scrooge McDuck as put together by Carl Barks and makes sense of it, weaves stories in and out of it, does the stories that are mentioned in passing.
And even if you had, I had the original Complete Life and Times of McScrooge from, I believe, the 80s. This is the complete run. This is rejiggered. You can get it in either the separate hardcovers, because issue 2 is being, or down below as the feature item, how I'm getting it, just as a box set. Sadly, when part 1 came out, it missed my my cut. But since there aren't a lot of graphic novels I'm buying this month, this is the box set is definitely something I'm going to pick up.
So if you've not read Don Rosa's duck work for Disney, he is just as good as Carl Barks. He has the same sort of beautiful way of mixing adventure and comedy. His art is unique. I always look at his stuff, and when he was here in town, I said, your stuff always reminds me of if Bill Elder had drawn like Carl Barks. And he was very, very humbled by that. He's a fan of both of those creators. So I cannot recommend that book highly enough. Let's see what else popped out at me.
Well, I was going to jump way to the back while you're loading up your next run. Page 401, Uncivilized Comics, in the corner called My Dog Ivy. I do read all the descriptions, and this one caught my fancy, and I think I'm going to pick it up. It's the latest from the fertile mind of one of America's best cartoonists, Gabriella Bell. Gabriella is in for trouble when she over-enthusiastically answers a call to house sit a small Minnesota home for a month, complete with 2 cats and a neurotic golden retriever named Ivy. The month-long vacation home, in quotation marks, proves to be a gargantuan responsibility as she awkwardly attempts to fill into the void left by the pet's owners. Gabriella's only salvation is the turbulent relationship forged with the dog Ivy. Black and white, $5. I'll give it a shot. On page 204 from University Press of Minnesota, I've mentioned these books in the past, Conversations, where they put together all the different interviews from a different creator. Lots of fun. This month is a hardcover with Jeff Smith. And these are basically, it's from University Press of Mississippi. So these are almost like textbook type things. And they talk to Jeff about almost everything he's done, from, Bone, of course, his influences, to even things like the Shazam miniseries that he did for DC. So if you're a Jeff Smith fan, I highly recommend these. Also, not a lot of people buy these because, like I said, I tend to be a read them and leave them type of guy. The ones I read, I was able later to flip on eBay for extended prices. So definitely check that out if you're a Jeff Smith fan.
If you could go back to page 364.
Oh, if I must.
Return to Romance, the strange love stories of Ogden Whitney. Ogden Whitney was a creator at Dell. He worked on Little Lulu. He worked on a number of other books, including the Nancy comics, which I have such a deep, abiding love for, and they're nothing like the comic strip. But at one point, he Let's see. He also did Herbie Popnecker, which is one of the coolest, strangest comics of the 60s. And if you can ever get your hands on a collection of those, oh man, they're so cool. He did some romance comics in the 50s and 60s, and even more. Let's see, he made them even more unique. In Whitney's Hands, the standard formula of meet cute, minor complications, and final blissful kiss sometimes becomes very different. An unsettling vision of mid-century American romance with as a devastating power struggle, a form of intimate psychological warfare dressed in pearls and fishnet suits. I have not read any of his romance comics, and I read that description and went, oh, I got to get that.
You know, funny you read a description and said you got to get that. I will push you forward to page 411 in Vault Comics. And this is a series called Money Shot. And since we haven't done anything to earn our explicit rating in lately, I will just read this. In the near future, space travel is ludicrously expensive and largely ignored. Enter Christine Ocampos, inventor of the Starshot teleportation device with a big idea. She'll travel to new worlds, engage intimately with local aliens, and film her exploits for a jaded Earth populace trying to find something new on the internet. Now Chris and her merry band of scientists, come porn stars, yes, I said it, explore the universe, each other, and the complexities of sex in Money Shot. Yes, this is a story about scientists having sex with aliens for the glory of mankind and money.
And if you notice, they have a variant cover that looks like Fantastic Four number 220, which was drawn by Byrne.
They've done that with all their number ones. You look across to Creature Feature, which is more of a monster type thing, which sounds fun. There they have a spoof of Archie, Afterlife with Archie. Boy,
that was what I saw.
We really kind of dropped out of the Twilight Zone here, haven't we?
Yeah.
Well, if you go back to page 338 with Humanoids Press, they have a graphic novel, The Twilight Man, Rod Serling and the Birth of Television. This is on the list of, if I can afford it. But it's a biographical tale that follows Rod Serling's rise to fame in the golden age of television and his descent into his personal Twilight Zone in graphic novel form. I've seen, he's got a biography out that looks huge and expensive, but I haven't picked it up yet.
Because it's huge and expensive.
Yeah. I will mention, if you're fans of Godzilla, Kaiju Max is back with a new season through Omni Press. And he always does them as seasons, so it's a lot of fun. So you definitely want to pick that up. That's, of course, by Xander Cannon. And I absolutely love reading his stuff. And I'm just going to take a quick run, but I think I do have issues with Lion Forge. They had this book come out called Catalyst Prime where they were soliciting 2 to 4 a month, and I was all ready to see it. Well, apparently they canceled them all. Now they're just doing them 1 a month. Don't know if I'm going to buy them. I'm a little verklempt right now. Cory, just go on. Tell the good people who isn't verklempt.
These guys, our sponsors. Promotional consideration is paid for by the following sponsors. Our first sponsor is DreamHost.com. DreamHost.com has been with us since the beginning. They're the best web host in the whole known universe. And if you need a web host, and you do because, Facebook, Google+, everything gets hacked. But if you set up your own web page, it'll never get hacked. Unless you kind of make some mistakes or pick an easy password like password. But still, you can have your own web page. If you use the code CRAYZ, Krayz, you get $20 off your first year. When you're at the office, do you often run to the vending machine for snacks? Those things are terrible for you. Instead, have snacks delivered to you. So go to Graze.com. Graze.com has healthy snacks that you can decide what kind of snacks you want, how often you want them, whether they get delivered to you, or if you choose them every time. I myself get the subscription box every 2 weeks so that I have healthy things to eat when I'm at work. You can get a free box by using the code CORYS3R5P. Matter of fact, use that code, your fifth and your first box are free. Again, that's CORYS3R5P. If you'd like to advertise on any of the Solitaire Rose Podcast Network shows, you can just send us an email at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. And this isn't the only podcast I do. Oh, perish forbid. I do tons of other podcasts like these. The Solitaire Rose Radio Network has all sorts of podcasts for you. There's, of course, Crazy Comics and Stories, where myself and Crazy Joe Ryder get together once a week to talk comics. We review comics, we talk about upcoming comics, we talk about comics history. Anything that has to do with comics, we're going to talk about. We also have Series in Review, where we review series and kind of give a DVD commentary of past comics that we've enjoyed. There is also Solitaire Rose Radio. Solitaire Rose Radio is my solo show where I discuss upcoming comics, past comics, comics history, and interview comics creators. These are all at crazycomics.solitairerose.com. There's also the podcast I'm proudest of. That's Novelcast, where I take the novels that I have written and turn them into audiobooks. That's at novels.solitairerose.com. Over at Bad Advice, myself, Dan Moore, and Wolfie B. Bad take your questions and give you bad advice. It's at badadvice.solitairerose.com. Now, don't think that I'm doing all the podcasts, because there's also Scrabbling Across the West by Dave Koffel and Stephanie Koffel. Dave is a musician and Stephanie is his wife. They travel the country performing music and playing Scrabble over at scrabbling.solitairerose.com. And finally, the newest member of the Solitaire Rose Radio group, that's Fantastic Forecast, where myself and host of For the Love of Comics, Adam Vermillion, go over the series The Fantastic Four, 4 issues at a time. That's available at fantasticforecast.solitairerose.com. If you would like to advertise on any of these podcasts, you can. Just email me at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. Thanks. And now we get to Joe's favorite part of the show. No, not where I eat a bowl of maple bacon donut cereal. No, it's Joe. What's going on the eBays?
Lots. Still things going good. I've been, now that I've got the Kray 4000 up and running, I can actually put things on eBay. So I've been doing it. I'm just going to rattle down. I haven't talked in the last 3 weeks of things I sold. So I'm just going to, these are things you missed out on. Justice Inc. 1 through 6. This was the, and I had the Alex Ross variants. This is from Dynamite, where they team together all the Golden Age guys like the Shadow, Doc Savage, the Mask, and do Justice Inc. I found some Gargoyles TV show promo sheets from 1994. Yeah, I trust me, folks. I don't throw anything away. I had 2. One sold. The other one's still up. Corey's going to be most upset with me, but I sold another omnibus.
What?
I know. I might have to turn my. You know, the first one I sold. Do you, if you remember, Corey? Or did you blot it from your memory?
I have blotted it from my memory because it's evil.
Well, it wasn't. Well, it was the Eternals. I had a copy of the Eternals one. At the time, it was upwards of $1,000, and I thought, you know what? I've tried to read this. It's largely incomprehensible. Beautiful art. And I have it in other formats. So I sold the omnibus. This one I sold for the same reason. John Carter, Warlord of Mars omnibus. Picked up where I don't know where I picked it up. I had the original series, which I've long sold on the eBays. I debated whether or not to keep it or not. And I thought, you know what? I put it up. Holy cow, did that sucker sell fast. Because you know me, I always go for the lowest one. Clearing out the Marvel Visionaries by Peter David, because I got the omnibus coming. I had a copy of Art of Lady Death, Volume 1 hardcover, which I probably sold right away. That Detective 1000 press kit box that I got back at the SpringCon from the charity booth, sold it. Yeah, somebody made an offer. What the heck? I had 3 Transmetropolitan promo cards. If you remember, this was the DC Helix series of Spider Jerusalem. Oh, Brainlock. Who wrote it?
Spider Jerusalem, Transmetropolitan? Why,
Yes.
that was Warren Ellis.
Oh, geez, boy, that was a brain lock. We talked a little bit about Little Abner. I'm selling off my Little Abner dailies. I got a few of the more expensive out-of-print ones left, but I sold a couple volumes of that. Giant-size supervillain team-up number 2. This was back when I think it came out before the miniseries. Dr. Doom, Submariner were teaming up against everybody. I put up a Marvel Masterworks, not brand Eck, sealed hardcover. Sold it. Martial Law, if you remember that comic series, I had a couple stickers from 1987. Basically the logo of the San Futuro Police Department. They're not expensive, but I ended up selling it. One of the Marvel Customs comic that I picked up along the way when I was collecting a bunch of promo comics called Spy Gal. Thrills, and Espionage. And this was for Benefit, which I believe is a store in San Francisco. They did 2 of them. Number 2 by far is the rarer one. I've only seen it pop up a couple times, and I didn't grab it quick enough, which was probably fine since I was selling off my giveaways anyways. But number 1s, there's still a few out there on the eBays if you want a very thin pamphlet that they use to give away. Marvel does tons of these things, so it's always worth checking out. Another book left over from when I owned Hot Comics St. Paul from TRS, The Hag's Contract by John Bellicount out of their Birthright book series. So I have a few of those left online. A Shazam number 5, the C.C. Beck run from 1973. I hope the person got it. They have yet to, get back to me, but she's very excited to pick it up because she'd had it as a kid and it was stolen, and I gave her a deal on it, so hopefully they got it okay. I had from 1972 a Doctor Who 45 RPM, and kids, if you don't know what that is, yes, Cory and I are old. This is called Who the Doctor, sung by John Peterwee, the 3rd Doctor. I did try to see it is still trademarked, otherwise I'd drop it in one of our music selections, but I decided not to because I don't need the BBC on my case. A couple sketch covers went. I had an Archie number 1 that had a Betty Zombie sketch by Ken Hauser. He does he does a lot for Dynamic Forces, always drawing stuff, so that was fun. A couple Lady Death Apocalypse comics back when Boundless was clearing them out by Matt Martin. One was Cosmic, one was Beauty, one was Lovely. I had a print, and Cory might remember this, from 1992. This was when Spawn or Cerebus appeared in Spawn, and it was kind of a big deal because it's one of those that'll never be reprinted. It's not terribly expensive, but the prints are, because they were just 10 by 6.5 prints promoting the appearance, and it's actually kind of funny because it's got Cerebus wearing a Spawn costume, and he says, "We better get a big increase in circulation out of this sim. Cerebus feels like a fool." And just trying to find these in good shape are tough enough. I do have one that's beat up. It was one that I actually posted up because we did a big promotion with Cerebus and Spawn and Cerebus Zero and all that stuff. So, and it worked pretty good. Revolution 1 through 5, which was the melding of the Hasbro universe, pushing Transformers and G.I. Joe and ROM and Micronauts and Visionary together. Didn't last. A couple Transformers. They did a commemorative series where they put the originals in a commemorative box. I had a couple of those. I sold Grapple. And I think we're coming... Yeah, some of these I might have mentioned before. The Erotic Worlds of Frank Thorne. This was an Eros comic from 1990s. They're in the previews section if you want, kids. You got to get an adult supplement to see it. But Frank Thorne, who's done lots of fantasy illustrated stuff, had his own series, and this was one that was donated, and it didn't sell for a lot, but I'll probably use it to just give it right to the charity auction again. I had Chilling Adventures in Sorcery number 2 from Archie Comics, 1972, which had Sabrina in the early appearances before it ended up being just Sorcery Comics under the Red Circle line. Malcolm X, The Angriest Man in America graphic novel from 92. I think it was self-published. Wayne Essop did it. New Avengers, Transformers 1 through 4, back when Marvel did crossovers with people. Fun little I don't think this will ever be reprinted. So it's one of those, if you care. We should do a story about the unreprintable Marvel. Logan's Run Last Day, #1 from Blue Water, which is annoying because it covers 1 through 4, and #5 was the last issue. And why they didn't put it in? They probably thought they were going to do more. An Avengers #1, 22 karat gold Rob Liefeld signature cover. Avengers 1, of course, back when Marvel gave everything to the Image Boys to do. And they did these signature covers. And not real signatures, but replicas. But it's in gold, 22 karat. So you can see them. I sold mine for about like $22. They range in from 22 to 75. And you know me, I'm a low ball guy. I don't know how far back it's been since I've talked about this. So some of this may be, yeah, I think I'm already back a ways, but that's what's sold in the last 3 weeks. I've got stuff going up now almost constantly. Some toys I put up, some WWE toys, more premium or promo items, you know, the type of things that you might have just thrown away or recycled. Some are valuable, most aren't, so they're low buck stuff. I actually have a bunch of vintage postcards. I got to figure out if these got a value. If not, I'll start just mailing them to Cory. He loves it when he gets unsolicited mail. Matter of fact, if you want to send Cory some stuff, drop me a line via either Facebook, email, or if you see something online and you want to make an offer on it, KRAYZ under the eBays. And as a dear listener of this here show, I always like to throw in a little extra bonus. It could be, let's see here, I got a autograph photo from Insecula, which is a never released DVD that our old buddy Joel Thingvall, local comic creator, actor, was in. He was Lobo, not DC's Lobo, but you thought Ed Wood did good in his movies, or Tor? No. Trust me, if they ever remake Plan 9 from Outer Space, Joel gets that role.
Insecula is on Amazon.
Oh, I know what I'm going to be watching tonight. It might be just a button here. You know, it's a logo of something, but heck, I like to toss in freebies. So just send me a note. You're a dear listener of this here show. Make an offer on something, or, but I'm not giving away the Thanos copter. Just, it's not going to happen. Don't ask.
You're going to use your line.
Come get some.
Thank you. And now we get to my favorite part of the show. No, not where I abandoned Joe to go see the new Quentin Tarantino movie.
Which is a worthwhile endeavor. I would accept. I would still feel it's hurt, but I would understand.
No, it's Freaking and Geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
I went on the eBays quite a bit. I don't have much I'm freaking on, except last week we forgot the most important watch of Hip Watch 2. We didn't once say Electric Boogaloo. I apologize. Cory, what are you freaking on?
Joe is sorry for the error.
I am. I totally. Although Cory is usually the one who he insisted on the Electric Boogaloo, because anytime you have a 2, it's got to be the Electric Boogaloo.
Yep. I even think that Star Trek II Wrath of Khan should be Star Trek II Wrath of Khan Electric Boogaloo.
It should have been. But do they listen to us?
No.
No. Everything else they're listening to us. I mean, all that stuff. Let's do a big Crisis on Infinite Earth. They're picking that up royally. I mean, every time I turn around, they're stealing another idea from this here podcast. Why, Cory?
Because we are a national treasure. And the first thing I'm freaking on, we still don't have a Wikipedia page.
Nope.
Slackers. There are people out there I know who listen to this show. I know love this show. I know they message Joe and I, tell us how much the show means to them, that this show has saved their life. But will they put together a Wikipedia page for us? No.
And, folks, no matter how hard Cory and I try, those Wikipedia folks are smart. They are. Every attempt at us to put up our own page gets shot down. We need help.
There were only 2 things I wanted for my birthday this year, Joe.
and pie is one of them, which you
No,
pretty. Oh
no,
no,
I have pie.
he has sources of pie.
I wanted a Wikipedia page, and I wanted the power to decide who lives and dies. Joe, what are you geeking on?
Well, I did go and visit a local comic shop that opened up. We've been talking about it, and I went back. As I call it, let's see, it was Epic Comics and Collectibles over on 2730 Stillwater Road East in Maplewood, Minnesota. They're open every day. They're on Facebooks. They're on. I actually talked to the owner for a bit. I got to get it prepped, but we're actually going to have a quick interview with him. So
What?
I know we'll have that in the next couple of weeks. In the meantime, I got to tell you, if you're a fan of 70s comics, they have the most wonderful runs of stuff. And really, you got to get over there quick because you know it's going to be picked through quickly. I have a couple things that I picked up here. I picked up a copy of Spoof. Cory, tell the good folks what Spoof is.
Spoof was early 70s when Marvel decided to flood the market, and I believe was Spoof the new. Spoof was new.
Yeah, Lunatic Side of Spoof.
Well, they had two. They had Spoof, which were new parodies, and this was before Crazy. And then there was Arg, which actually reprinted parody comics from the 50s. So they really thought that this was going to be a big deal. And it lasted all of 5 issues.
Yeah. I found a copy of issue 3, mostly because it's got the Beatles on it. It's got it's a swearing in ceremony, and you see the Osmonds, you see the Jackson 5. That's got to be Donovan, Rolling Stones, the Beatles, and they're swearing in. John Lennon is like, "Do you promise to, uphold the Constitution?" And I believe it's Mick Jagger. Right on, Dad. It might be David Cassidy. I'm not sure. Oh, there's no, that's got to be Janis Joplin. And Donovan, wow, I made it. I'm the new Secretary of Rock. And I'm not sure. I think that's Elvis Far Out. And in the corner is Nixon and LBJ. You had to lower the voting age. Oh, yeah, it was David Cassidy because LBJ's holding a newspaper. Cassidy by a landslide. And according to Atomic Avenue, Spoof is a early 70s. They take broad strokes at early 70s TV culture, including Dark Shadows, the Mod Squad. And it's only 5 issues. And this was their. I don't know if these have ever been reprinted. You'd think maybe there's an omnibus in the future for this stuff. There goes another $1 million idea. I also picked up a Walt Disney Showcase, The Wonderful Adventures of Pinocchio, just because I was trying to. He had a bunch of $2 stuff, and I picked up some Marvel Fanfare. Those are actually 80 comics, but I was just trying to fill in my collection, and I figured, well, this would give me an even $10. So, I did go there. Did I talk before about going there during they had their grand opening sale?
Yes.
Yeah, so I won't recount what I had there, but I did revisit, and I do plan to go back. He should be getting new comics. The interview was really cool because it talked about just some of the stuff the hoops he had to jump through setting up a new comic store. Information that I don't have because I haven't had a comic store in 15 years. And I did talk to him about, if we could pick his brain occasionally, like if we have a question like, how many variants do you get, or what do you do? And he was like you and I talked about when I opened up Crazy Comics, because the first variant we're like, do I want to get that? I mean, it's 200 copies I have to get of Wolverine, and it's $200 cost. I could probably put it on eBay for $200, but people probably be putting it on for $150. Do I want 200 copies of Wolverine? Well, ultimately I didn't. But as a small store, I support him. He reminds me so much of what I did. I got to kind of keep my mouth shut now. Well, you should do this and you should do that. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, I've got, if you're opening a comic store and you need advice, Cory and I have talked about this in previous podcasts, but we're always here to pick our brains. And you can do it for free. as long as we can talk about it on the podcast. So check it out. Epic Comics was a lot of fun. I did get my box day. I actually was sick a couple days this week, which again is a freaking because as you know,
Joe.
What?
Joe,
What?
You're sick every day.
Well, true, and not to get too maudlin, but you know, rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes. Yes, I know I'm sick every day.
I was talking about the mental illness.
Well, that's a part. Well, why else would I be doing a
crazy?
Why else would I be doing a podcast for you for 9 years when we thought this sucker wouldn't even go 2 months?
We're gonna run out of stuff to talk about pretty quickly.
Yeah. Nope. Although I do admit it has evolved into something I always wanted to make it less topical. You know, like this whole thing with previews. It's almost like a historical record of what's coming out, and really, who knows if someone in the future is going to pull this sucker down and, well, they sat there and they raved about that, but boy, did that thing flop. But I always wanted that type of podcast, but I also realized there isn't a current issue podcast being done right now that I'm aware of. So we'll fill. We got ask Cory. He's got tons of goody two shoes. We'll find something that fits. Speaking of fit, I did read some comic books. Can you believe it? When's the last time this is for a Joe Prize, which is, again, a mythical prize. If I mention something about a previous podcast and one of you actually says, oh, that was in podcast, whatever. And I'll believe you. I'll probably just say, oh, yeah, thank you, and send you one anyways. But I can't remember the last time I actually talked about comics. And I actually had the opportunity, and it was tough because when I got my box day, as I mentioned, I was homesick. The mini freaking it was 20 hours of sick time I need for my freaking hip. But, you know, and the thing was I called my colleague I was working with, and it was her last day for like 3 weeks because she took all of August off. And I told her, you know, I think I've got that stupid summer cold that's going around. My wife had it. My boss at work had it. And I said, I could probably come in and just sit, do my job, but I feel like crap. I started feeling that way shortly after we did the podcast last week. They're not related. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to stay home and veg, which is what I did all day. The comics showed up, and I was like, oh, man. And I do notice something about my box day. I have less – I make pile. I should do like you do, Cory. Just – here's my box day. Here's how I do it. I sort everything, you know, graphic novels, previews, and any magazine-size stuff. Usually a couple issues of back issues or whatever dark label comes out. And then I line up the comics. And it's the two must be read immediately pile. Okay, this is a miniseries. I'm going to wait till I get the miniseries. And then the pile of books that I collect, but I've kind of gotten away for a few months, like the current Superman, Oblivion Song. There's a couple other ones. And so I got to wait and put those together. But I do notice my pile of must-reads is getting larger in comparison to the other things, which means because I'm getting real picky about the type of stuff I order out of previews. I'm not just ordering things to order things because I know eventually I'll read it, or like I did with John Carter, flop it on the eBays. So I was pleased with that, but I was also very cognizant of the fact that I could probably read this stuff in about 4 hours and I have nothing to read. Fortunately, being a little, you know, sick tizzy, I got through a few over the course of the next couple of days. I still got a big pile to read. Oddly enough, the first thing I read was a Transformers Unicron from Free Comic Book Day. And was this a couple of years ago? It couldn't have been this year. Yeah, last year. I read the series, but, you know, again, I barely remember. What was fun in the back was John Barber wrote a thing called The Writer's Guide to Unicron. And it basically kind of gave a synopsis because they had this plan through the entire run where they just, much like DC Comics is doing now with all their stuff, you know, they're planting these little seeds. And for long-term readers or guys who are able to read it all, it's very rewarding. And some of it, even the original reference to Unicron probably went right over the reader's head because it was so subtle. But then it all weaves together. And they did a pretty good job of weaving together the Hasbro universe into G.I. Joe. Basically, the gist of it is it's kind of like a lost colony type thing. There were 13 lost colonies of Cybertron, and different ores were put on different planets. G.I. Joe's found it. Earth was one of the Cybertronian colonies. Anyways, Unicron wakes up, and he's eating all the colonies, which, you can see the problem because right now Earth is in the menu. Ram in his, I forget what they call his Earth. Their planet, which was eaten. Spoilers. Yeah, it didn't spoil Unicron's appetite. But that was one of the, so they weaved it all together very well. And they ended it, which was interesting, and they relaunched it, which was even more whatever. But it was fun to read, just kind of the synopsis. And then on the back, they do what I praised Dark Horse for, or I'm sorry, the Dark Crystal thing from Boom. They do the guide. Here's how you read everything over the last 7 years in what order. So if you are picking up this free comic book day, you at least, if you're mildly interested in the story, you're like, oh my God, there's no effing way I'm picking up all this. Or you go, oh cool, I can just start from the beginning. So that was fun to read. What I did read, I'm going to save that one because sooner or later you and I are going to do a review episode. Finally got my copy of Uncanny X-Men number 22 because I do have House of X and Power of X sitting in my pile behind me. And much as I wanted to read those, I knew I had to read this first. Although somebody said that whatever happened in Uncanny X-Men got reset. So whatever. I'm happy. It was a fun conclusion. Enjoying Jughead's Time Police because when Cory and I were digging through trade paperbacks at Dreamhaven, anything with the word time. And I do like the fact that this is tied into current Archie continuity, and there's a twist ending, and so on and so on. Doctor Strange continues Mark Waid's run, where I'm only on issue 16, and it ends with, oh crap, I got to wait another month until next issue, even though I know 17 is probably on the shelf. The final issue of Star Trek, the Q conflict. Oh, I absolutely enjoyed it. I'm a Star Trek geek, and this one, how could you not like it? Because Q gets together the Metrons and I can't remember the guys who stopped the orang. I was going to say orangutans. The guys who stopped the Klingons and Federation from fighting. And basically they're going to have a war because they do that every so often just to decide who's going to be the big cheese in the galaxy. Fortunately, their wars tend to involve supernovas and galaxies imploding and lots of death. And Trelane is in it, but they decide that they're going to, instead of do that, they're going to grab 4 captains out of history. They grab Picard, who I believe would be current, not Picard current coming up, but the current one. Janeway from Voyager. It was, I think, still in the Delta Quadrant. Cisco from before he disappeared into the province, and the classic yellow shirt, James T. Kirk. I mean, I think I raved about it earlier where they all reacted to, here comes the 4th team, and they're like, just aghast to see Kirk and company come walking over. A lot of interplay between the characters. It makes you wish they could do, if they did a movie or a mini series of this. I mean, granted the fact that a lot of the original cast are dead. Oh, CBS Access, you'd have my money. Again, IDW is showing you the way. Just do it. Just do it. I am having a lot of fun with Young Justice. They are lost in the multiverse. And believe me, when I went to the first page of issue 7, I had to stop and go, what? And go backwards. Wait a minute. Where are we? What? Am I in the right book? Because they're in what looks like the Teen Titans Go universe, where they're all midgetized cartoons. And then they get popped into the next universe. And I'm only talking page 3, so it's not like it's a story. Now they're in the Captain Carrot universe, which I love. And Captain Carrot's going on and on about, yeah, I know your dude. Superman, chubby guy, blue tights. I was like, how do you know him? And Captain Carrot whispers, multiversity. And it gets even better from that. I would advise you to read Kingdom Come. I'll give it away before you continue. But Oh, Bendis, you are hitting a home run with Young Justice. I absolutely love it. Fantastic Four, part one of the current Thing Immortal Hulk fight. And there's a timeline here because Thing was going to, he is it once a year he appears as human, and
Yes.
he had planned it to be his honeymoon. Well, that's when Mortal Hulk shows up to fight. So you got a countdown. Is he going to waste his time fighting, or are him and Alice going to get busy? Never mind. Amazing Spider-Man 25. We talked about it in previews. It's 60 pages. This was brilliant. This was not what I complain about a lot of times, where it was like, they're breaking off into their little series. It's all like almost one big continued series. Although really it is. They just didn't stop and say, oh, here is this, here is that. But I enjoyed it thoroughly. And then, of course, it goes into Amazing Spider-Man 26, where he goes toes to toe with the superior foes. Not really, but it's a fun series. Spencer's doing a great run. Fresh off War of the Gods, Avenger. No, not War of the Gods. That's the omnibus coming up. War of the Realms. You've got Avengers 21 and 22. 21 being kind of the breather issue from the big crossover mania, Death of the Universe, which flows into the next Challenge of the Ghost Riders. And again, they're referring to Johnny Blaze and Don Vike. And another series, occasionally I'm like, maybe I'll drop. No, I'm not going to drop this. And even Don Cates and Guardians of the Galaxy. They're out there on the premise. They just reintroduced a cosmic foe that the Guardian's going to fight with. Will it intersect with the rest of the Marvel Universe? It should. So this was just the short run of comics, and I was like, oh my God. You listen to my voice. I am just raving on this stuff. And up next week, I'll probably be gabbing about the House and Power of X, because that's going to be next on my list now that I've finished Uncanny X-Men. Oh, I'm so excited. Anyway, I'm drooling. Other minor geekings just to cover up freakings that I've done. I got my Kray 4000's up and running pretty good, so the eBays and all my fun stuff's good. I was able to get my tooth fixed last week because that was one of my freakings where the tooth that I was flossing and poof, there goes a piece of my molar flying out. Where'd it go? Oh, it doesn't matter. In the toilet, it's gone. But it's sterile. No, never mind. And when I went to the guy, he thought, well, we might have put a crown, big $2,000 job. Well, no, he was able to refill it, cover it with whatever. And it feels really weird. Take a look. Let me turn the light on. It feels even weirder than it looks. But because he did it less than a year ago, right before I had my hip done, I think he said he's not going to charge me. And I'm going to probably have to send him a bunch of him and his son have been picking up 9.8 books of first appearances. And I'm usually telling him, pick up this one because of this. You might want to pick up, was it Thor, was it 237 first Beta Ray Bill? Things like that.
337.
337, thank you. And a lot of times, though, it's too late because the high grade ones are already insane. And I have read things online where they say something's weird going on in the market because people are going nuts over first appearances and these prices are going way too high. But if you look at the print runs, they should not be going that high because there are a lot of them out there. But unlike the speculator runs of the 90s, there are people buying multiple copies, which is why Avenging Spider-Man number 9, and I think I always keep saying number 10, but number 9, the first time Carol Danvers calls herself Captain Marvel, is still a $400 book because whoever has them, unlike me, isn't selling them. But if you do need $400, now's a good time to do it because he thinks there's no way this can sustain itself because it'll go down. I think maybe it might because they're not pushing it much like was it Marvel Comics Presents number 5? Or no, 5 was the first appearance. 6 was her full appearance where they didn't advertise, hey, Wolverine's daughter's here. Or if they did, nobody was paying attention. And now everybody's like, hey, if she becomes a major character, just like what was it, Johnny Hex in Young Justice, where her first appearance was somewhere no one could see. The moral of the story is buy one of everything. 2 if you can afford it. Cory, what you geeking on?
I got my box day as well, and in there was the Jack Kirby Bronze Age Omnibus.
I should stop and say, Cory, thank you for doing the podcast, because I know that's where you usually curl up in your closet with a quart of chocolate soda and turn off the lights, except for the one over your shoulder.
This reprints everything Kirby did at DC other than Kamandi and the New Gods. So you've got all the stuff from In the Days of the Mob, all the stuff from Spirit World, all the stuff from Spirit World that was actually published in the Marvel, in the DC mystery magazines, the one-shots like Dingbats of Danger Street, Atlas,
First Comics.
all of the stuff that he did for the Demon. This is a fantastic book. And if you bought the Jack Kirby omnibuses when they were a different size and smaller, you've got most of the stuff other than the Demon and OMAC and Superpowers. So this is a lot of fun. And it's huge. It's just huge. It's almost as thick as the Infinite Crisis book. I finished reading Final Crisis, the novel by Greg Cox. And he took the story and changed it so that it worked as a novel. But still, as I'm reading it, all I kept thinking is, if I didn't know all these characters already, I would be completely lost. Because it's like, okay, here's 2 pages dealing with this character. Here's 2 pages dealing with this character. 2 pages dealing with this character. But it just reminded me how much I loved that story where Dark Side won.
That's what you get for blinking, folks.
Yep. And just, I was awash in Kirby goodness. I have started watching The Boys on Amazon. I am only watching it 1 episode at a time because,
yes.
It's intense.
Yeah.
But very good adaptation. And I'm also very glad that this is another creator-owned book. It is supposedly the most streamed series on Amazon now. We also got the new series of Glow on Friday, the 3rd season. Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. I love that show. Again, I am trying to space it out. I only have watched 2 episodes so far, but there's still a lot of weekend left. Yeah. Also, comic-wise, I got a bunch of boxes so that I could clean my living room and sort things and start putting things away. And Thursday night, I got home after a rough couple of weeks at the full-time job because we're shorthanded, as always. I've been putting in overtime there because if I can't put in overtime at the group home, I might as well put on group overtime at the full-time job. So I got home. I was just tired. I didn't want to do much of anything. And after about 20 minutes of watching TV, I had all these new comic boxes. So it's, you know what? I'm going to start sorting sorting comics. At about 9:30 at night, I was sorting comics, watching wrestling, and drinking diet soda. And I thought, you know what? Oh, and I was putting together stuff for the podcast so that it could be up on YouTube. If you notice over the weekend, I threw up a ton of stuff.
You threw up? I'm sorry. I didn't even know you were sick.
Please clap.
Well, Jeb Bush liked it.
Yeah.
But there you go. Me working on podcasts while sorting comics and watching wrestling. I think that's the most Cory weekend ever.
I probably do that all day now, just sort comics.
And gonna go see the Quentin Tarantino movie tomorrow because I like seeing movies early in the day because then I don't have to deal with other people being there. Believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for almost 2 hours.
Thank you.
And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
I'm sorry, I'm playing Simpsons Tapped Out, which is probably the only game I play right now. So if if you want to send me a game request, because I'm like every freemium game's best friend, because yeah, I'll drop $20 for donuts here and there. So, but I guess since my Kray 3000 died, and I still don't have any music left, but I do have some dad jokes. Did you did you hear about the joke about construction? I'm still working on it. Hit my music.